YouTube fan, smash like and subscribe as we look ahead to the penultimate game of the UEFA World Cup qualifying playoffs and Wednesday's mouth-watering meeting at Wembley. Vamos! The domestic seasons have wrapped up in Europe, but soccer fans looking for their fix are spoiled for choice on Wednesday with two massive games taking place on British soil. Scotland will scrap it out with Ukraine at Hampden for the right to scrap it out with Wales for UEFA's final World Cup berth, while Italy and Argentina face off at Wembley with an intercontinental trophy on the line. I'm joined by Jonathan Johnson and James Bench to break it all down. Qué Golazo begins right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Qué Golazo, Qué Golazo pod on Twitter, youtube.com/Qué Golazo. We're getting closer to 12,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for the support. I'm joined by two fine gentlemen who have been working very, very hard, as always, but specifically right now as we, give you some updates regarding all the information that's going on around the world. Before we begin into our Scotland, Ukraine, and UEFA playoffs, La Finalissima as well, we want to just give you a little bit of an update of what happened, since the horrific scenes that we saw in the Champions League final outside of Stade de France as well. A game may have been happening during that time, but a lot of chaos ensued before, during, and after as well, of course. So, James Bench, welcome, buddy. Give us the latest information as more and more things are trickling down on my Twitter feed. What's going on?
Yeah, so as we speak, this is Tuesday morning Eastern time. UEFA have launched what they inevitably had to do and launched an independent investigation into the events outside the Stade de France on Saturday night. I'm sure JJ will be able to update us on the Parisian side of things, and it really is something that's dividing conversations and dividing debate here in the UK as well. An awful lot of very angry politicians and angry supporters as well, furious at the way that Liverpool fans were treated. I saw this firsthand. I remember sat next to Jonathan at the Stade de France about 45 minutes before kickoff and thought, okay, there's something going on. You see some stuff on Twitter pop down, and I have to say nothing prepared me for what I saw outside. It had been difficult getting in at the time, but this was absolute chaos. Supporters that had bought their tickets were showing you their tickets, and by all accounts, they looked pretty valid to me. We're hemmed up. We're not being allowed in. Everywhere you went, there were gendarmes in riot gear running left and right. It was a very scary atmosphere, I have to say, to be honest. Nothing compared to what it was like after as well, I should say. Pepper spray, tear gas. I think there was a moment for me where I sort of said, why am I coughing and crying? And you realize that some of the tear gas has blown you away. It was an absolute mess. That was followed, I thought, and I don't know how familiar this is to JJ, but it was followed by quite what I found quite scary journey back home. I walked to Saint-Denis metro station, which is where I hadn't gone before, but the way that police were letting us out kind of forced me that way. Just after I'd done an HQ hit at about midnight. And you suddenly became aware, because people were shouting, that there were people getting mugged and people being intimidated. Real absence of police presence, absence of any signs. I suddenly found myself walking into the metro station. I had no idea it was anywhere at all. But that's the sort of experience for the night. What we will sort of see from here on out, I think, is a game of political point scoring, at least until we get this full and independent review. And I think there'll be a lot of questions for UEFA and the French police to answer.
Yeah, and there seems to be a failure to recognise at this moment in time from the French government of sort of any wrongdoing, which is truly stunning, to be honest. I won't say, that it's completely a surprise that they would back their own, but to the degree that they have so far with some of the numbers that have been thrown around it's really jaw-dropping and very disappointing. I mean, as James, painted the picture really well with the mayhem on Saturday. I mean, going back to my experience of it, it was slightly different. I mean, we both tried to arrive, about 3 hours ahead of kickoff, which, we managed to do successfully. I was actually entering into the stadium around about the time that a big amount of Real Madrid fans did, but it was, it sticks in the memory. And looking back on it now, I do remember there were, a lot of police dressed up in riot gear. And when you think back to it a bit more, it's almost kind of like they prepared for the wrong kind of match. They were almost prepared for a clash where they expected there to be a lot of, violence, two sets of fans going at each other, and I think, one of the many problems, that created the awful and chaotic scenes is that they misread, the two sets of fans. There was an assumption that Liverpool fans would prove troublesome. And I think they perhaps expected that it would be different, from the Real Madrid fans as well. I think they must have expected some of the locals to try and get in, because when you look at the video evidence, you cannot refute, that some of the guys vaulting the fence, going in, not even, flashing a ticket because they don't have one. They knew the situation very well, and they were almost preparing, to make the most of it, like the pickpockets, because when you've got the fans funneled in such a limited space, it's obvious that sort of thing is going to happen. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon in Paris, but I think a massively chaotic organization, or lack of organization, it's a huge disappointment. It puts major pressure on now, not only in terms of future events, should they be permitted to have anytime soon, but the Olympics is coming up. You've got the Rugby World Cup as well, so it's big sporting events on the horizon, and this doesn't look good for the French government and for the French police. And let's not forget, Emmanuel Macron played a big role in getting that match moved once St. Petersburg was no longer going to be considered to be the venue of the final. And for that sort of disaster to go down on home soil, there has to be some accountability. So we will see if the line from the French government and the Parisian police changes over the next week or so. I'm not convinced it will massively, but there has to be some recognition of fault. It's split over many different parties, but I think the one party that the French government are trying to point fingers at, cannot really be faulted. I thought the Liverpool fans' behaviour in extreme circumstances was exemplary, and it's just hugely disappointing that this has gone down, kind of in my backyard, so to speak. I've been to so many football matches at Stade de France over the years. I was there the night of the Paris attacks. I've never seen the kind of chaos that we saw on Saturday just gone in 10 years or so of covering football matches there. It was hugely disappointing. And I think that it also points to a big problem in French football, as I wrote on the site a day or so ago, that French football is trying to deal with. Yes, we've seen all the fan problems, and some of the
I'd like to add very briefly before we talk about what's to come in European football. JJ is spot on in addressing Liverpool fans here, and I wish that some of the police that had been at the ground had been, wandering around Paris like so many of us were that morning. One of the most wonderful atmospheres, Real Madrid and Liverpool fans intermingling. The sun was shining, the beers were flowing. Sadly, not for me and JJ, but we can but dream. And it was a fantastic atmosphere, and I didn't see any trouble at all, and you didn't hear about any the night before as well, it should be said. And Liverpool fans in particular really understand what can happen in these situations, and we had to be very careful talking about this on the site. But I was there doing Vox Pops with Liverpool supporters. All of them said this could have been another Hillsborough, and obviously that is a really loaded term for Liverpool fans to use. And the one final thing to show that they were treated different, if you go and watch the video at the final whistle, the Liverpool fans who are waiting for it to be confirmed that their team has lost, their end is the one where there are police every few inches in case of a pitch invasion or anything like that. What are they going to invade the pitch about? The Real Madrid fans at the other end? Nothing. There's no police presence there. They were treated very differently, and they were treated in a way that showed a basic lack of, people say they're treated like animals. You don't treat animals the way that people treated Liverpool fans. That's animal cruelty. It was disgraceful scenes, and I think it spoiled a wonderful day. I didn't particularly enjoy the final and all those things because of it, and I know I'm not alone, and a lot of Liverpool fans would share that. Yeah, very dispiriting to be talking about this still.
Well, dispiriting, but important nonetheless. I'm just happy that you both are safe, and obviously you can't really say the same thing on everybody, but we hope that every fan, families, children, everybody, hopefully they got out essentially. And thank you so much for your reporting and your great updates on this. This obviously will not go away. A lot of answers, a lot of questions need to be answered, of course, from UEFA, the French ministry, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll be keeping you up to date. And James Spence, Jonathan Johnson, on top of everything, thank you so much. And once again, I'm just glad that you guys are safe. All right, let's move on. Obviously, this game doesn't stop. World Cup playoffs continue, of course, specifically focusing on the European side of things as Scotland face Ukraine. And I'm sorry, everybody, but we kind of have to keep going with this sort of somber tone, because this game, obviously, on the pitch, tactically, we'll talk about, very important. Ukraine is no stranger to the World Cup, actually, and Scotland less so, of course, but they're both fighting for a spot as well as they continue this. But, we need to add context to this. Ukraine find themselves in a situation that's bigger than football, that's bigger than the game since Russia's invasion of the country. And as a result, a lot has had to come into place regarding the team and their preparations for this game. And it's important to remember that since the Russian invasion, Ukraine had to put first of all, the domestic competition in the country obviously had to stop mid-April. That was a fight, a battle between Shakhtar Donetsk and Dynamo Kiev, obviously historically the most successful teams in that competition. But there will be no, coronation of a winner or anything like that. Everything had to stop. Players had to leave the country, of course. And since the start of May, the national team put a 21-man squad together, which has been training together in Slovenia. Other players, your Sinchenkos, your Molenkos, of course, others, Europe-based Ukrainians have still been playing their trade till the end of the season. But little step by step, they've been trying to come together, setting base in Slovenia. They've been playing friendlies. I believe they beat Borussia Mönchengladbach last week 2-1 as well. So the preparations have been happening for this game. But it's important to begin with that, Jonathan Johnson, just making sure that everybody knows that this isn't a normal situation. Things are bigger than football, and Ukraine is dealing with so much, and just the fact that they're getting ready to play this game is commendable in the first place, I think, as well. Give me your thoughts on that just before we get into the actual preview.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you cannot underestimate the importance for Ukraine as a country that they're able to put together a national team given the dire circumstances, and can actually, compete, for a place at the World Cup. I know that there will be a lot of neutrals, sort of hoping that they will manage to make it. It must have been an extremely difficult, challenging, testing situation to be in, trying to get that group of players together, trying to get them to focus on football, given everything that's going on back home. It's nice that it hasn't slipped off of sort of the public consciousness and the radar either. We had Jurgen Klopp talking ahead of the Champions League final about basically how crap it is, the situation that's happened with Russia invading Ukraine, because the final was supposed to be played in St. Petersburg. And I think for Ukraine now, this will be a huge statement. Doesn't matter about the result. It just matters, getting the players out there on the pitch, and reminding everybody that they are still standing as a nation. And it's, I imagine it's going to be full of emotion, even more emotional if they manage to make it through the first game and get to the final. But the fact that they're even getting there and will be taking to the pitch at Hampden Park is already a massive win, I think.
Yeah, I can only echo everything everyone is saying there as well. I remember, I mean, this might sound like a sort of strange example, but I mean, you kind of, if anyone was watching Eurovision, the Eurovision Song Contest a few months ago as well, just seeing Ukraine being part of these things that the rest of us in Europe take for granted, that the rest of us, it's just an annual thing. And you can tell how much it means to still feel like a part of Europe, to feel like they aren't closed off, that doors are still open to them, that as much as possible, given the situation involving that country, that they can still have ways of partaking. I think that's really impressive and really powerful. And equally, it means they could do something of a treble if things go right for them, in that they could beat the entirety of Great Britain in the Eurovision Song Contest. We're still not bitter about that. I mean, if we could lose to anyone, it's kind of like a win for us, really, because we're never going to beat Ukraine on a public vote. And then go and beat Scotland and Wales to reach the World Cup. So it would be something really special. I think the only other thing to say about Ukraine is just how good the footballers are.
Yeah.
Not just, the names we all know. Andriy Yarmolenko, who was wonderful for West Ham late in the season. Zinchenko, a fabulous footballer. You'll know players like these, but one I would say keep your eye out on. And we don't know how fresh he will be, but he's such a young talent. It's Ilya Zabarny, the 19-year-old defender from Dynamo Kiev. This kid has got the lot. And I know that before everything, this was a player that scouts from across Europe were flying out to Kiev to watch. So huge talent there. And I know we'll come to talk about how good Scotland are, but this is really good footballers with something more than football to play for. So they're going to be a powerful force on the pitch.
Yeah, should be a very good game indeed. And as you saw right there, if you're watching on YouTube, the winner joins obviously that group, England and USO. A lot of eyes on this one as well. Well, the winner of this game plays Wales, and then of course we'll see what happens there. We've talked about Ukraine, some star players there that you just mentioned, James mentioned, but let's focus on Scotland now, because they got their own journey, of course, and 8 games unbeaten. James mentioned this is a very strong, resilient Scottish team, a lot of talented players that we know, of course, but a little bit more on the lowdown as they get ready for this big game at home.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, Luis, they are just a team riven with quality, and that has happened. It feels quite suddenly, but again, you look down the list of players in this squad and players that are likely to start. Andrew Robertson, the captain, he's gone from a Premier League title deciding game straight into European Cup final, and now on to World Cup qualifiers. It could be 5. And I think the game before the Premier League was the FA Cup final as well. So someone give this guy a pre-season friendly to play in. But equally, John McGinn, I may as well mention him before you guys do. Billy Gilmore. Some of the talent here is real high grade younger players as well. I mean, Che Adams, I think, is excellent whenever I see him in a Southampton shirt. It's good players. They're a team that's tough to break down. We saw that at the Euros as well, even if things didn't go to plan and they didn't manage to escape the group, that they're hard to score against, that they're well drilled, well organized, such quality at fullback as well. And that Hampden Roar, it took them really, really far. It helped them win in their Euros playoffs as well. And as much as, everyone across Europe will want success for Ukraine, that Scottish crowd will be very, very much making it a passionate place and a big, there'll be a big boost for Scotland when it comes to the game itself.
Yeah, just adding on what James was saying, I mean, it still feels like Scotland are kind of riding the crest of that wave of optimism that followed, after they made it to the Euros, and now the possibility of getting back to a World Cup as well, something, that they haven't been at now for decades, is, that is huge, and you can't underestimate that. Fingers crossed that, it's nothing but a 100% positive atmosphere, as it certainly sounds like it's shaping up to be at Hampden Park. And I think we could be in for a real feast of football. I mean, I think Scotland have a bit of an advantage in that, their players are, coming off of, pretty much all of the players are coming off of a season of domestic action in Europe, whereas some of the Ukrainian players, have been sort of disturbed by the situation and the fact that their team couldn't suddenly play and then have been kind of thrown into these. I mean, the friendlies, it's good to get them out there to get some match practice in their legs. It's not the same level though as a domestic league game. So, I think there will be an advantage for Scotland there. But I do still think that it is, going to be 2 very closely matched squads. Like James said, there's plenty of quality in that Ukrainian group as well. We hear Mudryk being linked with moves to a host of European clubs, some in the Bundesliga. And I think that this is, it's almost too close to call, this one.
Yeah, almost too close to call. Let's focus a little bit on some matchups here, and then we'll get into the predictions. James, you mentioned Ilya Zabarny, 19-year-old star there. Is there anywhere else on the pitch that you're looking at, perhaps on the Scottish side as well? Where are you focusing on here in this game?
Oh, that's a good question that you have literally thrown at me, Luis, and I probably should have seen coming. However, I mean, one of the things that Scotland do, to my mind, really well is how well they defend as a collective unit. We saw this when they beat Denmark, that they collapse And one of the things we maybe don't appreciate with Ukraine is how technical and creative they can be across that front line. I don't think they have, Yaremchuk is a good striker, but I think you kind of need to create a lot of chances for him. So for me, the question will be, how does that midfield, which I think may well dominate the ball more than you expect, whether it's Yarmolenko, Zinchenko, Malinovsky as well, really technical players, can they just craft their way through this Scottish team? That's what I would assume we will look at kind of more of a counter-attacking Scotland, whether it's someone like Lyndon Dykes holding the ball up and Che Adams running off him, which is quite strange given that Scotland are the home team. But I think rather than individual matchups, I think for me that's the collective thing that interests me. Yeah. But picking an individual, I wonder if those Che Adams runs in behind, and McGinn and McTominay, the McGinn in particular, his dynamism in possession, can that push Scotland up the pitch and get them into positions where they can control? And I'm just going to go and do a massive cough.
I mean, I think James is right to point out, Yaremchuk's sort of strengths and weaknesses. He is definitely sort of your typical kind of battering ram forward, where you expect that it's going to get quite physical between him and the Scottish defense. But then again, is he actually going to start? I mean, so much has changed with this Ukrainian side since we saw them at the Euros, and obviously they had a penchant at that time for scoring howitzers, and then sadly fell short against England, and then Shevchenko left. So it's not just the situation with Russia's invasion that has changed for them. It's they changed coach as well, and they will now have to find a new style of play. The one thing that I would say about them under Shevchenko was when I saw them at Stade de France against France, they didn't create that much, but they were very, very stout, very resolute at the back, very, very well organized and well drilled. And if they have managed to maintain that, given everything that's happened, then I think that Scotland could run into some problems. And that could also be a way for them to sort of negate the impact of maybe a lack of competitive match practice for some of those players. And if they can make themselves as tough to break down as they were at the Euros, then I certainly think that they stand a chance. But for me, I think it's the biggest battle is going to be, for Ukraine to keep Scotland out and keep themselves in the game, certainly sort of in that first half. And then if they can utilize someone like Yaremchuk's physicality in the second half, then they could. I can certainly see them scoring at least once.
Well, this is a massive game with not just footballing, expectations, but with the emotional mountain that comes with it due to what's going on with Ukraine. But as James noted, this is a job that Scotland want to do at home as well. So I'm sure the 12th man will be right there. So quickly, predictions then. What do you expect here? Who will be facing Wales in this game? Jonathan Johnson, let's go you first. Scotland, Ukraine. What do you think?
I'm going to go 2-1 Scotland. Wouldn't surprise me if it finished level after 90 minutes, but I'm going to go for the Scottish, just by a slight fraction.
The heart wants what it wants, and I think that I think Ukraine are going to do this, and I think they'll do it against Wales as well. So I'm going to go 1-0 Ukraine.
That's amazing. That
honestly, it shouldn't happen, should it? But I've spent ages saying that Real Madrid shouldn't happen, and it keeps happening.
The emotional, battles with the, logical. I guess I think you will see very emotional scenes at the beginning of this game, no doubt. I think the entire stadium will realize what's going on and everything, and and I'm just reading all these things like 150 displaced children from Ukraine visiting the Ukrainian squad last week and watching them train. It's just very hard. You have to be a robot not to want to see Ukraine make it all the way to the World Cup, of course, unless you're a Scottish fan. It's going to be tough, but I'm with you, Jonathan Johnson. I think that once the game gets going and you get the support from the stadium, I think it's a 2-1 victory for Scotland. But this Ukrainian, it's more about Ukrainian side not really getting enough competitive matches getting ready for this one, but we'll have to see what happens. But we have James Bench thinking Ukraine goes 2 here with Scotland. We'll see what happens there. These teams meet again in September in the Nations League and League B Group B1. By the way, more UEFA Nations League talk after the break, as well as a look ahead to Wednesday's Finalissima between the champions of Europe, Italy, and the champions of South America, Argentina. We're going to take a break here. Jonathan Johnson, James Bench, and Lamy will be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back. Qué Golazo here with Jonathan Johnson and James Bench. Quickly, obviously, Wales is waiting for the winner of this game, but they got a Nations League game in themselves, facing Poland against Wales as well. So, Bench, what shape are the Dragons in heading into this one? How are they looking as they face Poland?
Gareth Bale's fit. What more do you need? And I suppose that's and Aaron Ramsey as well. I suppose that's kind of the priority for Wales is to just tune things up, not to change too greatly. And considering where they were a few months ago, I think one of the advantages they have is a settled side, a settled system, settled coaches as well. Obviously, I don't want to dive too deep into Ryan Giggs's off-field issues, but Rob Page has done a really good job leading them. So this is going to be about tuning up, maybe adjusting your tactical. And it's strange because Nations League matters. I know we're going to come on to talk about a bit more about how much, but there are points and prizes to be won. But really, it's nothing compared to the prospect of getting to that first World Cup. So I think you'll see Rob Page. I mean, he'll use his strongest 11, but all eyes will be on the what do you call it? The final qualifier, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah. I mean, I think one other thing about this Welsh national team that I like was they built up so much momentum sort of round about the time that they had those great runs under Chris Coleman, Euro 2016, for example. And you could see that there was that chemistry within that core group of players. And they've managed to sort of get back to that in recent years. And now, Page is getting the best out of them, or what was left of that group, because some of the players, ultimately moved on. And I think that with that momentum, perhaps the sort of logical crowning moment for this Welsh generation might be reaching that first World Cup. It feels like it's something that probably should have been within their reach before now, but better late than never, I guess.
Is there a worry from the Polish side about Lewandowski's current state of mind, about where he's going? Are you worried about that at all, Jonathan? Lewandowski is saying, I'm done with Bayern Munich. Does that weigh on his mind, do you think? Will it be a noise, basically, within the Polish base?
Well, it's a bold strategy, Cotton, to get yourself out of the German champions. And I'm keen to see how it plays out for him. But
with no money.
Yeah, I mean, really, I was surprised by him taking Bayern on quite publicly like that. But the whispers have been there for a while, and what we've seen on the pitch from them, since that Champions League success in 2020 doesn't lie. I think this Bayern side is in need of regeneration, and if it wasn't Lewandowski, it would have been Müller, or it would have been Neuer. I'm surprised that Bayern is sticking with Neuer and Müller over Lewandowski. But then again, given that Thomas Müller is Mr. Bayern Munich, I guess maybe I'm not that surprised. But no, I mean, Lewandowski, he's always going to be Poland's main danger man. And they are a tricky side to come up against. There is some, the quality elsewhere as well. Obviously, us Villa fans, James already touched on McGinn. You've got Matty Cash in there as well, who's done very well for Poland since switching allegiances. But, I think, they're reasonably, well-matched sides. Like James said, we're going to come on to the debate about how much the Nations League matters. I'm not sure it's going to be the end of the world for Poland, but they will give Wales a good test before that final World Cup qualifier.
Yeah, just on Lewandowski, I'm intrigued that the desire is to go to Barcelona. I mean, I know that obviously, and I'm sure this will be the case, that it has that particular mystique they and Real Madrid have that anyone would want to play for them, but this is something of a basket case of a club right now. We're hearing, as we record, we're hearing talk about them needing to sell Frankie de Jong and sell pretty much anyone decent that other teams would want, and filling up their squad with free transfers, all to potentially pursue a La Liga title that, look, admittedly, of course the competition is greater than in what is something of a one-team Bundesliga at the moment, but it is hardly it's hardly a hugely competitive landscape where he can change the conversation about him. That is almost me saying I'd be intrigued what happened if he went to the Premier League. But yeah, it's so strange just seeing him burn his bridges. I know there was a degree of debate about whether he called them a serious club or an unserious club. I don't think it was Tosin that was advising him, so I think it was the former. But it's strange to leave in this way.
Yeah, that to me is my thing. Like, it's a bit weird. Like, you've had such a amazing relationship and the influence that you've had, and it's very strange the way. So surely behind closed doors, there's been a lot of drama, I guess, a lot of back and forth that hasn't been necessarily, productive for either Lewandowski or Bayern Munich. But, we'll have to see what happens there. But anyway, back to this game, Poland, Wales, we'll see what happens. But yeah, let's get to this. Kevin De Bruyne, by the way, was asked about the Nations League, and he said, the Nations League is unimportant in my eyes. Just glorified friendlies after a long and tough season. I am not looking forward to it. So it's probably not a good time to tell you that there's a lot of Nation League games coming up. Belgium, Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, France, Denmark, Croatia, Austria. Thoughts on De Bruyne's comments there, James Bench? What do you think?
Well, he's right. That's the whole point of the Nations League. The Nations League was, let's stop playing these friendlies and let's glorify them. So congratulations, Kevin De Bruyne. They are indeed,
though, hasn't it? It's
I agree.
In the moment, looking for a trophy, you've seen some pretty good competitive games, but that's what they are. To your point, I mean, he meant it as an insult, but it's what it is.
It might be the only silverware carrying Benzema has in his France career.
Oh my goodness.
And the golden generation of Belgium would not be kicking this out of, wouldn't be kicking this out of bed at this stage if they'd ever won one.
Yeah,
it is, of course it's not the World Cup and it's not the Euros. And I think the challenge it's had is that COVID has just absolutely massacred, its schedule, because UEFA have to always bump it down. There's a World Cup and, Euros qualifying have to take precedent, but it's still an awful, I remember the days when, the big European teams would, if they did play each other in a friendly, it would be two separate 11s, mass changes at halftime, and you gleaned nothing from it. At least at this, 7 out of 10 FA Cup third round, Premier League giant playing in the FA Cup third round level of intensity, you are at least getting something out of it. You will learn something. And I wish they didn't have to play four Nations League games in one round, but
yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. I just, sometimes you just need perception, because, okay, to a Belgium and an England, maybe not, but there's other countries that take into consideration how important this can be. Yeah, it's big, and they can learn and test themselves.
You've seen the sort of the rising tide of European football has lifted a lot of boats of countries that have been playing exactly what the big teams have always said they should just be doing, which is playing these competitive games. A team like Armenia, I feel, have improved quite a lot, and I suspect, if you asked Armenians, they would say the Nations League has helped a lot in that regard, because they aren't getting tonked week in, week out by bigger nations. They're improving, and it is helping. It's not this is not a great moment for Nations League football at the end of such a draining season, but it's much, much better than what we had.
I agree. Did Deschamps agrees, Jonathan Johnson, or this friend? What does he think?
Yeah, I mean, something else to bear in mind, I think, for Deschamps, for everybody else. I mean, it's a new tournament as well. It's still kind of in its infancy, and it's going to take a while for it to become sort of part of the furniture, compared to other international tournaments like the Euros, like the World Cup. I mean, I totally agree with James. A lot of the international friendlies that we were seeing before the Nations League came into being were totally pointless. Some certain teams with sponsored tours where they just go around, mess around on the pitch for a while. You don't really glean anything from that. But they do. Certain federations just turned it into a money-making exercise, and I think, it is, there is a certain meritocracy to it as well, given that the teams can change, sort of moving up and down, depending on their performances as well. I think, it is something that will grow in importance, and its importance will be seen sort of in maybe 10 years time, or after the first 10 years of the competition. Because like James said, there are smaller nations who are using it to further themselves, and I think although it might seem like a bit of a chore for some of the bigger teams, there are coaches who could approach this more intelligently and perhaps experiment more with their teams. And I think that's perhaps where the situation with Deschamps is a bit frustrating, because Deschamps is one of those coaches who everything he does is dictated by loyalty to the players. So it's always going to be the same group of players, which is madness when you have as much talent as France do, and players that could be experimented with, given a chance, who might ultimately end up going and declaring their international allegiance elsewhere, because Deschamps won't, move away from the tried and tested formula that won him the World Cup in 2018, and he's hoping will win him another World Cup later this year.
All right, we will see how that develops. But as I mentioned, a few Nations League matches all over as well. Wednesday and the rest of the week is packed with action, so we don't stop here. All right, let's keep going here before we get into final thoughts. There is another game at Wembley, actually. Should be a cracking game. Hopefully it is. I don't know. These two teams are very proud. Fan base is very good. You got the champions of Europe, Italy, who are not going to the World Cup, sad to say for Italian fans, but they are the defending champions of Europe right now, against the champions of South America, Argentina. A lot of great narratives here. Messi, of course, Chiellini saying goodbye, I guess, to the Azzurri as well. Will be the farewell tour there. Should be a fantastic game. The trophy's pretty tasty, by the way. And because of this match, everybody, we thought we'd have some fun and do a combined starting 11 of Italy and Argentina. Once again, we are doing this so you can all yell at us on social media and YouTube. And once again, we're doing this to just, by the way, this was very difficult to do. And number two, if there's one thing that you don't want to do and get angry for fan bases, it's these two teams. I don't want to listen to Argentinians and Italians yell at me. But we've had to do it. So we've all made our starting 11s. And remember, this is our personal choice, okay? So just calm down. I'm expecting that I'm going to go nuts at Jonathan Johnson. Des Norris was warning me about his lineup. I can't wait to see what it is. But James Bench, by the way, you start. And by the way, it's an all-time starting 11. They can pick from any decade. This is not just the current players. This is an all-time Italy, Argentina starting 11 all-time. James Bench, take it away.
Although it has to be said, it's hard to pick players you've never seen play football before.
Right.
So that kind of is what I would want to say with my team, which is predominantly kind of 1990s onwards, although there are certain players of a level of greatness that you just know to pick them. Hence, I have Alfredo Di Stefano leading the line. The hardest ones for me to pick, I think, were the three. I really wanted Batistuta as well, and then I remembered Alfredo Di Stefano. The three off the central striker. I mean, two of them picked themselves. Two of, I would say, the greatest players ever: Maradona, Messi, and then Roberto Baggio. Just the divine ponytail is the perfect nickname for a player that invariably lit up the game. I kind of was thinking with that front four, I'm going to need someone to get the ball to them, and then someone to actually win the ball back. As good as my defense behind it is, I struggled a little bit. I don't know, with sort of not very agricultural, robust midfielders, and picked Diego Simeone because he was the only one I could think of that I thought had been great. I was equally a bit reluctant to pick Andrea Pirlo.
Yeah,
obviously,
really?
a fantastic footballer.
No, you were right there. I like the formation too. What is this? A 4-2-3-1?
Yeah, it's a 4-2-3-1. I'm bored of the sort of, or I got very bored towards the end of his career of the sort of, especially in England, the cult of Andrea Pirlo. A phenomenal player, but it was just like English football had never seen a passing midfielder before. Back four picks itself. The back line picks itself. Maldini, Baresi, Cannavaro. I wanted to fit Nesta in this team. Javier Zanetti. And Gigi Buffon, and there's some absolute all-time greats that I've left off that team. None of them are Argentinian goalkeepers.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Well, Goicoechea, I have an emotional connection to it growing up watching him play, but yeah.
You weren't a Carlos Roa fan, James?
Yeah. if anybody, Jonathan, I'm ready for you. Show me what you picked.
All right, so here we go. I mean, there are a number of shared players with James Bench's 11. I'm delighted to say that I didn't omit Gabriel Batistuta, but I have made some surprise omissions. Now, bear in mind that I grew up watching a lot of Serie A when I was younger. So there's a lot of Argentines who have plied their trade in Italy as well. Now, I think Buffon probably picks himself for pretty much all of us. Maldini, Zanetti. And I wanted to try and balance it out a bit, try and get as many Argentines or almost as many Argentines as I had Italians, which is why I went for Walter Salmon instead. Nesta could have easily made the cuts. I was tempted by Chiellini given the emotional attachment to this game, but I'm going for some of the players who I grew up loving watching as well.
You don't have Messi in here.
Yeah, no, I don't have Messi.
You don't have Maradona in here.
Yeah, but I should qualify it as well by saying that I didn't want to go for someone who I didn't sort of grow up watching a lot of.
Messi.
So obviously, Maradona. So Maradona, sort of, because his career was tailing off just as I was growing up and getting into football. But no, Messi. I mean, I was honestly.
We need to send it to the PSG press office and see how they think of you next season.
And I don't know if you know. I don't know how fast Cambiaso is, but you're putting him as a right.
No, why? I'm not responsible for the entire layout.
Okay, it's a diamond. It's a diamond shape.
Probably would have had Totti at the top of.
Oh my god!
Head of the
you
three.
don't have
Well,
Messi or Maradona in here.
No, but honestly, I mean, Messi's a phenomenal player. It's just, emotional attachment to some of these players. Grew up almost idolizing Del Piero. Had to fit him in there somewhere. Yeah. Batistuta, one of the greatest goal scorers Serie A has ever seen. Totti, massive respect for him for being, a one-club man and also just a phenomenal player. And I tried to, maybe shine some light on some of the other, maybe slightly more underappreciated players. So, it's not like I don't think Messi is an absolutely phenomenal player and arguably, the best that we've ever seen. It's just, I wanted to go with one that was slightly different to all the others out there. No, obviously, I'm going to face plenty of questions about my mental well-being, but it was the same before the Champions League final.
The emotional connection is a good point, though, Jonathan Johnson. We're picking also some players that have an emotional connection for us, which is why I give you mine, which does have a little bit. What's that?
It's kind of Riquelme, isn't it?
Are you? What? How can it not have Riquelme, James Bench? You're too young to appreciate him. Buffon is an obvious one for all of us, right? Buffon, absolutely, right?
But no Cannavaro. Were you drinking when you made this?
I loved Alessandro Nesta way more, and that's why I was concurring with you on the emotional connection. To me, Alessandro Nesta was such a beautiful center back. Baresi, because I'm old enough to remember, of course. Maldini, the best left back that's ever lived. Zanetti, Tardelli, please look him up. His center midfield statistics are. Pirlo needs to be in here, and Juan Roman Riquelme, James Bench. I need to have him in here. He is just one of my favorite players ever. Batistuta, the all-time leading scorer for Argentina until Lionel Messi broke that record in 2016. Maradona and Messi, of course. That's so I decided to get Italians angry up front and get Argentinians angry at the back. And I think all us three are going to get, should we just mute Twitter completely from this moment, James Bench? Because we're about to get a lot of angry people.
I think I'm going to be fine. I played it really safe.
You did play it safe. Jonathan Johnson, just get rid of your account, I think, for the next week or so.
But anyway, to be honest, I've been debating getting rid of my account for years. It's just guff anyway.
That's a good point. But anyway, everybody, show us, let us know what your favorite starting all-time 11 is, Argentina, Italy. And anyway, this is the game. It's Italy against Argentina in this game. Any thoughts on it? I mean, it should be fun, James Bench, at Wembley. It should be good to see the champions of Europe against the champions of South America, although it would be fun, even more for Italians, knowing that they are going somewhere in end of November, but that's not happening.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the sort of facetious point here is we do tend to sort of decide which continent has produced the best team of their champions. We just do that at the World Cup.
Yeah.
And Italy haven't got that far. I mean, it sold out because when this came up and, sort of saying Wembley Stadium, I live not too far away at the moment from Wembley. And I thought, may as well see if there's any tickets on sale, but completely sold out.
A lot of Italians, a lot of Argentinians, Messi fans. I get it.
Is it not just the locals wanting to heckle Chiellini?
Yeah.
Don't tempt me. That's it. If I see him again after what he did to Bukayo Saka. This to me does feel a little bit like a pointless game, but it's it's the sort of fun pointless, isn't it?
That's what it
it's
is.
pointless. The quiz show with Alexander Armstrong and Richard Osmond. Good pointless, not rubbish.
It's a good pointless, and it's fun. It's going to be a good one. Italy, Argentina, they'll face each other. I mean, by the way, just Argentina getting ready for the World Cup. Of course, they were undefeated in qualifying campaign, so it would be a good way for European eyes to see a little bit more of what Leo Scaloni has done with this team, because it really has been a tremendous upstick since obviously the last World Cup. All right, well, that's it, everybody. Final thoughts. Final thoughts here as we say goodbye. Wednesday, as I mentioned, lots of action. The USMNT, by the way, they play Morocco. That should be a good game. USMNT against Morocco. James Bench is questioning whether it should be a good game. Morocco's a good team. They didn't lose the game in qualifiers. You don't have one American in this show, by the way, so we're not going to be going all crazy here. But USMNT Morocco, some other friendlies as well during Wednesday, June 1st. Final thoughts, Jonathan Johnson, as we say goodbye.
No, just looking forward to a slightly lighter schedule than usual. I mean, I think this is kind of like a bit of a welcome break before, what we hope will be quite a light summer. No major, transfer news, or certainly on my end. But it's no, I mean, you're kind of now into like the home straight. So fingers crossed for some great action to sign us off for the summer.
I mean, especially it's a home straight if, like me, you get to pretend like you want to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee and get 2 bonus bank holidays for it. Just one thing to flag up while we've been recording, Ivan Perisic has probably our first bit of big business of the summer transfer window.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Ivan Perisic has signed for Tottenham on a free transfer. I'm really intrigued by this because we saw with Inter, he's an excellent left back, convinced Antonio Conte of that. But he's 33 now, going on 34. And obviously we always say that Serie A is maybe a better league when your legs are starting to go a little bit and the Premier League is not. So we do have this intriguing juxtaposition, and maybe it will be that he has one great season and that's all Tottenham need him for.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued by how a veteran fares in the most intense of leagues. It seems like a good deal though. Tottenham really loading up for the Champions League next season.
Yeah, should be a good one. Definitely the second best signing announcement. Diego Carlos, I believe, Jonathan Johnson was.
Yeah, I mean, we all know James's take on Villa's transfer business so far. A bit worrying that we might be about to lose Beal to QPR, but
all right, also, we'll get Xabi Alonso in the house. That's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're relying on your manager's assistant manager, to get good results, then maybe you should have appointed the assistant manager, the manager in the first place. So, I mean, I've seen it happen before with Laurent Blanc, and fingers crossed, Gerrard sort of maybe comes into his own a little bit more, given that there is a lot made about Beal's influence and importance in his backroom staff.
Yeah, it should be good to see how he does with QPR. Good luck to them, of course. All right, well, that was James Bench at James Benz on Twitter. Follow all his content on CBS Sports. John_the Gossip as well. Follow all his content on CBS Sports. And we just keep on rocking here on Qué Golazo. Like JJ said, it's a little bit lighter, but not really, because we're doing still this every day. So, work never stops here. The game never stops. Qué Golazo never stops. James Bench, Jonathan Johnson, LME, have a fantastic rest of your week. We will see you next time. We're recapping, by the way, Scotland, Ukraine. I won't be here. It's my wife's 40th birthday. She's just about to kill me because I just said the actual age, but hey, it doesn't matter. But we still got our team here covering it all. So enjoy the rest of your week, all the matches. We will see you next time on Qué Golazo. Till then, bye-bye.